Okay, question number 18. Which function models the relationship F, the amount of force applied to the lever, and D, the distance of applied force from the pivot point? I noticed that the multiple choices have equations that has the letter F and letter D. So basically we're supposed to determine the relationship and how that relationship can be represented by one of these formulas. Okay, so let's go ahead and read the whole problem now. A farmer uses a lever that moves a large rock. Okay, a force required to move the rock varies inversely with the distance from the pivot point to the point of force applied. Okay, right there I see some important keywords, so I'm going to highlight it. For example, force, I see that the letter F is representing force. Then it says varies inversely. That's something that you need to watch out for. I'm going to talk about it in a second. And it says distance. So right there I learned that they're talking about distance, they're talking about force, and how we're going to represent this in an equation. That's what we need to do. Alright, so continue reading. A force of 50 pounds applied to the lever 36 inches from the pivot point of the lever will move the rock. Right there they give you some numbers, so I'm going to highlight those because that might be important. Okay, so before we tackle this problem, let's understand some things that they like to ask on the STAR test, okay? And the topic that is behind this question is constant of variation, okay? Constant variation is something that describes the change between two variables, okay? For example, there's two types of variation. There's the direct variation and the indirect variation. Okay, those are the two variations that are possible. They might show up on a question with the words vary directly for direct variation or varies indirectly. Also varies inversely for indirect variation. The thing that you need to remember is this. For example, if I had force varies directly with distance, then force equals a constant variation equal times distance. If it said varies indirectly or varies inversely, then I would have force equals a constant variation over the distance. Okay, so basically if it says varies directly, you're going to have both letters on top with one side having a K, a constant variation. If it says inversely, then you're going to have one letter on top, and on the other side the other letter is going to be on the bottom with the constant variation on top. Okay, so since our problem talks about indirect variation, okay, basically in our problem, let me go ahead and type over here, okay, and in our problem we had, let me change a little bit higher here, alright, and the problem says F, force, varies indirectly with distance. Okay, so from this I can translate this to this. Force equals a constant variation on top divided by the distance. Okay, alright, now we need to find what the constant is, and that's where the 2 points, these two numbers come into play. Okay, our answer is going to look like this. Okay, alright, okay, to find our constant, what we're going to do is we're going to plug it in those numbers that they gave us. They gave the force to be equals 50, and they gave the distance to be 36. Okay, if you notice right here, a force of 50 pounds apply and a 36 to the lever of 36 from the pivot. Alright, so my job is to get the letter K alone. To do that, how do I get rid of the 36? Basically, we're going to multiply both sides by 36. Because if I multiply both sides by 36, on this side, the 36 is going to cancel. And I'm left with the letter K alone. And if I multiply 36 times 50, so using the calculator here, 36 times 50 equals 1800. Okay, so basically we found our constant variation. That means let's go back to this formula. The formula is F over distance equals over distance, and the K is going to be 1800. So we can see that the right answer is letter H. Okay. Alright, so please remember these keywords varies directly. You're going to start out with this formula, F equals K over times D. And if it says indirectly or inversely, you want to say F equals K over D. And please remember that in this problem they use F and D. On a different problem they might use different letters. So you might have like A equals K times B, whatever letter they decide to use, whatever they're talking about, okay? But basically that's how you tackle this problem, okay? So let's go ahead and go to, and by the way, if this question is too hard, remember always you can put a question mark and skip that question and come back later, okay? You don't have to get every single question right on the test. So that might be one question. If you're struggling with it, don't lose too much time in it, okay? Because that can deter you from passing the test, okay? Remember, okay, your goal is to pass at least 20 questions, okay? And sometimes there might be an easier question. For example, right there, the next question is super easy, okay? What is the keyword in this problem? Which set of order pairs represents a function? Remember, function. If you have a list of order pairs, to be a function, the x value cannot repeat. So let's take a look at the x value. The x value is the first number, okay? Alright, so we know that this one is a function because the x value doesn't repeat. On this one, I see that the -1 right here repeats. So that means I know that this is not a function. How about this one? If I look at the x values, I notice that -4 repeats. So that means because of this, this is not a function. And the last one, let's take a look. The number 2 repeats. I can see right there, so it's not a function. Okay? So in this problem, the right answer is letter A. Please be careful on these questions, okay? They're super easy, but sometimes they throw in a letter, the word not. So that's why I always check every single one and I write function, not function, function, not function. It doesn't take too long to do that. So take the extra seconds because that's one more question in the bag towards your goal of 20 questions right, okay? And remember, the previous question was a harder question, okay? So if one question is hard, skip it because maybe like in this problem, the next question was super easy, okay? So that's a strategy for your test. Let's go on to question number 20. The question says, what is the total number of laptops in the lab? Right there, I see the keyword laptops. That's basically what the question is asking. What is the number of laptops? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to establish this variable. I'm going to make a note. Letter L, I'm going to use to represent laptops. Okay. All right. And I'm just going to make sure that I label that's what the question is. The question is to find laptops. Now let's go back and read the whole problem here. There are 156 laptops and desktops. So there's two variables here, laptops and desktops. That tells right there that I have a second variable. My second variable is desktops. Okay. So right there, that means I can build an equation. There are 156 laptops and desktops. So in other words, there's an important number here, 156. How do we get that? We get that by adding laptops plus desktops. How do I know I'm adding? Because see this word and? The word and in mathematics means adding. So laptops and desktops equals 156. So that first phrase there, I was able to translate to a mathematical equation. The second phrase, there are 8 more laptops than desktops. On a situation like this, I would ask myself, which one is bigger, laptops or desktops? In this case, laptops is bigger. The problem is saying there are 8 more laptops than desktops. So that means to find the number of laptops, you would add 8 to the number of desktops. So right there, we have two equations. This is what's called a system of equations. Because the letter is alone right here, the letter L, I'm just going to put a circle around it. Okay. And what I'm going to do with this information is I'm going to substitute into the first equation. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this equation right here to the side, and using that information right here that I circled, I'm going to substitute. Who am I going to substitute? Well, the letter L is alone, so that's the one I'm going to substitute. Substitute means is, and I'm going to change colors here just to illustrate, okay? Then instead of using the letter L, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to substitute the L with what L equals to. In this case, L equals 8 plus D. Okay. Now, it's very important then that the rest of the equation, and I'm going to do it in blue, okay? See this rest of the equation? I'm going to just copy it. Okay. So in other words, instead of writing L, I substituted L with what is equal to, and the rest of the equation I just copy as it is. The end result is the following. Before I had two variables, now I only have one, and that means I can solve this equation and find the value of D. So let's do that. Because let's combine like terms, so 1D plus 1D is going to equals 2D. So let's bring down the 8. This would be 2D plus 156. Now we want to get the letter D alone, so let's move the 8 to the other side. So this would be 2D equals 156 minus 8. So it would be 2D equals 156 minus 8 will be 148. And if we divide that both sides by 2, D is going to be equal to 74. Okay, now remember that my question is to find the letter L. We did not find letter L, we found letter D. Okay, that's where a lot of students miss, is that sometimes they find an answer and they think, oh, that's my answer, but make sure you double check with the question. The question is asking for laptops. We found the numbers of desktops. That's what we need to do now is we need to copy this equation here that we circled, L equals A plus D, and we're going to use this information that we found. Let me erase that, do it again, here we go. I'm going to plug it in right here. We're going to substitute it again, and that's why this is called a method substitution, because you're substituting quite often. Okay, so this would be, instead of D, we're going to replace with 74, and L equals 82. So that means my answer for this problem is L equals 82. All right, very good. Let's proceed to the next problem and see what we get. Okay, we're going to do question 21 now. And question 21 says, which statement about the quadratic function below is false? So the key word here in the question is false. So we're looking something that is not true. Okay, first thing I notice, I have f of x, g of x, and h of x. Remember that these is the same thing as writing y. So basically all this equation has y equals a formula. So that means you can go to the calculator and press the y button and enter these formulas. So this would be -3/4 x squared plus 6 -2 x squared minus 5 and 1 divided by 4 x squared plus 1. Okay, so make sure that we enter the correct numbers. Alright, everything seems good. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the graph. We should see 3 graphs over here. And there we go. With that in view, we can look for the statement that is going to be false. The graph of 2 of these functions have a minimum point. If you notice, this graph has a minimum, but these other two don't. They have a maximum. So that means this here is false. Okay, so let's check the other multiple choices to make sure that the letter A is the correct one. The graphs of these functions have the same axis of symmetry. Okay, axis of symmetry is the line that you can draw right in the middle, and one side is going to be the same as the other. So as you can see, the y-axis is acting as the axis of symmetry for this graph, in fact for all the graphs. So this multiple choice, it is correct. This is true. So I'm going to write over here true. Next one, the graph of 2 of these functions do not cross the x-axis. Alright, if you notice right here, this graph does not touch the x-axis, nor this one. But this one right here does cross. So this multiple choice is also true. In the last multiple choice says the graphs of these functions have different y-intercepts. That is also correct, because if you notice, here's the y-intercept for this one, here's this one, and the third one. They're all different. So that means letter D is also true. So the one that is false is going to be letter A. So we know for sure that letter A is the right answer. Alright, let's keep going to the next question. The next question says, which equation can be represented by the graph shown below? Alright, anytime I see a straight line, I want to think about y equals mx plus b. Okay, and as I look at this problem right here, I see that my y-intercept, my b, is going to be positive 2, and my m, remember, is slope. So then that means I need to find 2 good points on the line. So let's find 2 good points. I believe this one is right here, is going to be the best point right there. Remember, a good point is something that's right on the intersection of the grid line. Okay, so basically I will go down 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means I went down 3, that will be negative 3, and I ran 8. So that means the equation of my line is negative 3x x plus 2. Okay, so now that we have this information, we're going to look at the multiple choices, and we're looking for which one of these equations is going to represent this line. The thing that I observe is that none of these equations has the y alone, so the first order of business would be to get the y alone on each one of these multiple choices, so that way we can compare with the equation that we got from the graph. Okay, so in order to get the y alone here, I would have to move the 3x and the 16 to the other side of the equation. So that means the 8y stays on the left side, but the 3x goes to the right side, becoming positive 3x, and the 16 comes to the other side, also it becomes negative 16. Now to get the y alone, I need to divide both sides by 8, and that means the 8 cancels, and 3 divided by 8, if you go on the calculator and you divide 3 by 8, so let's clear over here, 3 divided by 8, press enter, we're going to get a decimal, and then let's change back to a fraction to see if the calculator is going to reduce that fraction. In this case, it gave me back 3/8, so that means you cannot reduce this fraction. Okay, so basically right here, alright, we're dividing both sides by 8, so then on this side we get a y by itself. 3 divided by 8 cannot be divided, so it stays as 3/8, and then 16 divided by negative 16 divided by positive 8 becomes negative 2. So that means the first multiple choice, when I get the y alone, I get this, and as you notice, they're not the same because this is a negative slope and this is a positive slope. This is positive 2 and this is negative 2. So we know off the bat here the letter F is not the right answer. We're going to do the same thing for the next multiple choice. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to move the 3x and the 16 to the other side. The negative 8y is going to stay where it is. Okay, so the 3x becomes negative 3x and the 16 becomes negative 16. Now we're going to divide both sides by negative 8. So that means my equation is going to become the y alone because the 8 cancels. Now 3 divided by 8, as we learned before, 3 divided by 8 stays as 3/8. And a negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, and negative becomes a positive. 16 divided by 8 is 2. So that means my second multiple choice, I was able to get the y alone, and when the y alone got, when the y got alone, this is what I got, 3/8x plus 2. And if I look at my equation that I got from the graph, the problem is I don't have a negative slope over here. So that means letter G is also incorrect. So let's go ahead and try letter H. Okay, we're going to move the 3x and the 16. That leaves us negative 8ay on this side. And on the other side, we're going to get 3x plus 16. And we're going to divide both sides by negative 8. And this would be y. So a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So it'd be negative 3/8 x. And positive 16 divided by negative 8 gives you a negative 2. Again, we've got the y alone, so now we can compare with the equation that we got from the graph, which is this one right here. And the problem is I'm supposed to get a positive 2, and here I get a negative 2, so I know that's not the answer. So most likely it's going to be letter J, but to be literal, let's go ahead and try it to make sure, because this question is not hard. It's just taking a lot of time to get all the equations alone, but this question is not hard. Okay, so let's move the 3x to the other side, the 16 to the other side. So that means on this side we're going to get just positive 8y equals, let me give you more space here on the bottom. Alright, so the 3x comes over as negative 3x. The 16 comes over as positive 16. We're going to divide both sides by 8 to get the y alone. With that, the y is alone. Negative 3 divided by 8 stays as negative 3/8. And positive 16 divided by 8, it becomes positive 2. And now we got this equation, and we compare with the one we got from the graph, and we notice they are the same. So with certainty, we know that it's letter J. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to the next question, question number 23. Okay, this question here, okay, off the bat, I see these 3 dots right there. Okay, I see them multiple choices have the letter N. And the problem is saying if the pattern continues, which expression can be used to find the nth term. So if you see these 3 dots over here and you notice the multiple choices has letter N, you can use the calculator to help you. Okay, but first of all, you need to build the table. Okay, we need to set the stage. How do I do that? You put numbers on top of each number. This is going to be step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, step number 4, step number 5. Okay, we're going to build a table using this list of numbers that we created there. Okay, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be my x values. It's going to be the steps. And the y values is going to be the numbers that is on the actual test there. This would be negative 0.5, negative 0.25, 0, 0.25, and then 0.5. Okay. Okay. Once we have built this table, we're ready to go to the calculator. So let's go to the calculator, and we're going to enter each one of these multiple choices on our Y window. Okay, so let's press Y, and I have previously entered this, but you would take the time and enter each one of these, making sure to change the letter N to letter X. Once you enter everything, just double check if you didn't make any mistakes, okay? Because you want to make sure everything is perfect here in the same order that it appears. Once you have entered, go ahead and press second graph, and we want to delete all the numbers on the X column because we want to enter the new values, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and 5. Okay, now once we enter that, we want to double check that the Y column matches the Y column on the screen. And I notice that the Y1 does not match, so I know that the first multiple choice is not valid. The second one also does not match, so I know it's not letter B. So we need to check the third and fourth. How do we do that? We press the right arrow so we can see Y3 and Y4. If you notice, Y3 does match and Y4 doesn't. So certainly we know that letter C is going to be our answer and letter D is wrong. Okay, so please remember, if you see these three little dots and you notice that the multiple choice is letter N, the key is to write the numbers. They're representing the steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Build the table, and then the calculator can help you get this problem done very fast and easily. Okay, so let's go on to the next problem. Next problem is problem number 24, and says, what are the solutions to the equation x squared minus 4x equals -1? Alright, anytime you see the word solution in a quadratic, you want to make sure that the quadratic equation has one side equals 0. So in this case, I'm going to move the -1 to the other side. That means it becomes +1. Okay, once one side equals 0, that means you can proceed and go to the calculator. Okay, and we want to delete everything that we have there from the previous problem, and we want to enter our new equation, which is x squared minus 4x plus 1. Okay, enter. Then we want to go to the table by pressing second graph. We want to delete all the values that are there because these are from the previous problem. I'm going to enter the new x values. Now, to enter these values in the calculator, there's two things you need to remember. First of all, anytime you see this big line right here, make sure you're putting parentheses here, because if you don't, the calculator will not understand what you're writing and it's going to give you a wrong answer. Okay, basically by putting the parentheses there, we're telling the calculator, do the operations on the top of the fraction first, and then at the end divide it by 2. Okay, that's what we need to do and remember for the calculator to do. The second thing you need to remember about this is that this positive and negative means there's two possible answers: -4 plus square root of 20 divided by 2, and -4 minus square root of 20 divided by 2. So both of these answers must give you the 0. Okay, and if one of them doesn't give you the 0, that means this is not the right answer. Okay, so now that we know that, let's go ahead and enter this by pressing parentheses -4 plus square root. How do you do the square root? You press second, and if you notice on top of the x squared in blue, you see the square root sign, so you press that, and it's be 20, close parentheses, and we're going to close the parentheses again. If you notice, there's two parentheses here being closed. The first one belongs to the square root, and the second one is the first parenthesis that we started out with. I'm going to divide that by 2. Before you press enter, you need to remember, double check that you do not make any mistakes entering the numbers. Okay, is that exactly what I meant to write? Yes, it is. So now press enter, because once you press enter, the calculator is going to change this into a decimal, and then after that it's going to be hard to check if you made any mistakes. Okay, when I press enter, it did not give me a 0 value, so that means letter F is wrong. We don't need to bother trying the second one because we already know the first one does not give you a 0, so we can know with confidence that letter F doesn't work. Okay, let's try letter G. Letter G is going to be parentheses 4 plus square root of 12, close parenthesis twice, divide that by 2. Press, okay, double check before you press enter, and that one gives me a 0. So that means the positive one works. Let's try the negative now. Okay, remember, to work, both of them have to give me this 0. So second parenthesis 12, close parenthesis again, divided by 2. Okay, if we press enter, they both give me 0. So this one is probably my answer. Okay, let's just to be sure, let's double check these ones. Okay, by pressing parenthesis -4 plus square root of 12, close parenthesis twice, divided by 2, and it does not give me a 0, so I know it's not letter H. Let's try letter J. Parenthesis 4 plus second square root of 20, close parenthesis twice, divided by 2, and again it did not give me a 0, so I know letter J also is not the answer. So with confidence I know that the answer for this problem is letter J. So the calculator here was able to really help me out in finding the answers very quickly and easy. Okay, let's go on to question number 25. Question 25, which inequality is equivalent? Keyword here is equivalent, meaning which one of these multiple choices is equal to this guy. If you notice, my multiple choices have the y alone, and this inequality does not. So first thing I need to do is get the y alone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange the numbers, meaning the numbers without y I'm going to send it to the right, and the numbers with y I'm going to send it to the left. So that means this guy here needs to move, and it becomes 3x. The 2y is fine where it is, so we'll just bring it down. The 5y, we're going to send it to the other side, becoming -5y. And the 9, we're going to bring it down. So all I did is to rearrange the numbers, so the numbers with y is on the left, the numbers without y is on the right. Now we're going to do the operations. 2y minus 5y is -3y, and on this side there's nothing I can combine, so just bring it down. Now I'm going to divide both sides by -3, and because I'm dividing by a negative number, this inequality sign needs to flip. +3 divided by -3 becomes -1x, and +9 divided by -3 becomes -3. Okay, as you can see in this problem, it's very important that to remember, if you divide by a negative number, the inequality sign flips sides. Before it was pointing to the right, now it's pointing to the left. This only occurs if the number on the bottom that we're dividing by is a negative. Okay, looking at this, the right answer then is letter D. Alright, so let's go on to question number 26. Alright, this is going to be question number 26, and off the bat I notice some important information that stands out. Before even reading the problem, I see the number 1500 and also see the equation that they give you. Okay, I also can imagine that miles stands for m, okay, and t probably is going to represent time. But to be sure, let's read. Which number of hours and minutes is closest to the amount of time that the jet has been flying if the jet is 1500 miles from Los Angeles? Okay, let's understand the formula. Okay, let's write it down, the formula here. M equals -475t plus 2650. Alright, the approximate distance in miles between Los Angeles and a commercial jet flight from Boston to Los Angeles can be found using the function m equals -475t plus 2650, where t is the number of hours the jet has been flying. So we see that letter m represents mile and t represents time. The problem is give me that information, 1500. So with that, we're able to solve the equation for t, and that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking to find the time it takes for the plane to arrive to the airport. Okay, so um, so let's go ahead and solve this for t by moving the numbers. Okay, the negative 475 is going to move to the other number, to the other side. It's going to become 475 t. The 1500 is going to come to this side as a negative, and the 2650 is going to come down. Then we're going to do the operation. Negative 1500 plus 2650. So if you want to use a calculator, you can press second quit and enter the numbers as they appear. Negative 1500 plus 2650. And the calculator gives me 1150. Then we're going to divide both sides by 475. And if we divide that on the calculator, so 1150, or the answer before, divided by 475 is going to equal to 2.42, which is very close to 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours. Okay, so we look at the answers here. Okay, none of them says 2.5 hours, but they say 2 hours and 25 minutes. Okay, remember, this is not 2.5 hours. It's a little bit less than 2.5 hours, because 2.5 hours would be 2.5. Okay, so 2.4 is approximately 2 hours and 25 minutes. So my answer would be letter F. Okay, if you like to know how to change these decimals into minutes, we could do this. Okay, this would be 2 hours. So this would be representing 2 half hours. I mean two whole hours. And the 0.42, what we can do is change to a fraction, to a decimal, 0.42, and multiply that by 60 minutes, because there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So if we multiply that 0.42 times 60, that should give me the amount of minutes, and in this case it tells us that's going to be 25 minutes. So that's why letter F is the correct answer. Okay, so let's go on to question number 27. Question number 27, the question says, what is the greatest value in the range? The word range means y value, so we need to remember that. So the problem is asking, what is going to be the greatest value of y? So let's go ahead and read the problem. The problem says the total cost of renting a banquet hall is a function of the number of hours the hall is rented. Right there I noticed that cost and hours is going to be important in this problem, and I'm going to go ahead and start to use letter C for cost and H for hours. Okay, so basically the cost of renting a banquet hall is a function of H, hours the hall is rented. The owner of the banquet charges $85 per half an hour, up to a maximum of 4 hours, plus a $50 cleaning fee. Okay, so basically we can build an equation, okay, that says the cost equals $85 per half an hour. Okay, that right there is a trap. We usually charge things per hour. It's kind of weird to charge per half an hour. Now what we can do is, to make it simpler, is we can change this to say per hour. So if they charge $85 per half an hour, in 1 whole hour they will be charging twice as much. So let's change this to say, instead of per half an hour, let's change to per hour. And if I was going to charge per hour, that means it will be twice as much, because there's 2 half an hours in 1 hour. So 85 times 2, what is 85 times 2? 85 times 2 is 170. So in other words, I can change this phrase right here to represent 170 per hour. So in other words, the charge equals 170 H. Okay, but also there's another charge. There's a $50 cleaning fee. So I'm going to add $50. All right. Now the problem is asking us which one, okay, which is the greatest value in the range. And remember, range is represented by the letter Y. So in this equation here, we don't have X or Y, but we know that this here is usually the place of Y, and this one is usually the place of X. So basically they're asking is what's the maximum cost that they can, this person, the owner, can charge. Well, if the maximum number of hours is 4 hours, let's plug it in the 4 there and figure out what is the maximum amount of money that he can charge. So by doing that, we can find the cost. So let's go ahead and do that. 170 times 4 is 680. I'm going to add 50. 680 plus 50 will be 730. So therefore the answer for this problem is 730. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to the next question. Question 28. And question 28 says the number of possible pairings of two objects selected from a set of x objects can be modeled by this function. Which table shows this quadratic relationship? Okay, in this problem I notice I have an equation. Remember that p of x is the same thing as y. So I have an equation right there, and we have a table. So that means we can use the calculator. So let's go ahead and click the Y button. Let's clear the equation that we have there. Let's enter this new formula just as it is, 0.5 x parenthesis x minus 1. Press enter, and let's go to the table now. Second table. Let's delete everything that we have there from the previous problems, and let's enter the new values of x. 2, 4, 9, and 13. And if this is the right answer, it will give me the same multiple choice. And you have to be careful with traps, because there is a trap right here. If you notice right here, the tables looks very similar except for the third line, where here says 36 and on the paper says 28. So we know right here that that was a trap, and we know that this is not the right answer. Go ahead, let's try letter G. So let's go back. 2, 5, 8, and 12. If we notice, all the numbers match, so everything is good. Now let's make sure to check the other ones. So let's go back and check the other ones. So it would be 2, 3, 7, and 13. And we notice that this one is wrong, so we know it's not letter H. And let's try the last one. 2, 4, 10, and 12. Whoops, made some mistakes here. Let's do it again. 2, 4, 10, and 12. Okay, did I get the same numbers? Again, this one is wrong. Okay, so if you notice, all of these had traps, okay, because they're betting that you're going to do too fast and you're not going to pay attention to all the values, okay? So we know the letter J is not right. The only one that gave me all the numbers the same is letter G. So I know it's letter G, okay? So this finished this section of the test review. So go ahead and if you want to continue checking the answers for the other problems, please stop this video and go on to the next video. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.